we do have a quorum, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. And I'll start with reading the remote meeting script. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access Channel, and this meeting of the Finance Committee is being conducted remotely. The town of Lunenburg, in response to the COVID-19, is currently following the guidance from the Lunenburg Board of Health, Massachusetts Department of Public Health, and the CDC regarding the virus and steps communities can take to prevent the spread, and all town facilities are currently primarily closed to the public without appointment. In accordance with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, all public meetings are being conducted remotely. You can find the order posted on the town website on the COVID-19 Information Center page, accessed through the town manager's webpage, which allows bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. I will basically tonight, because we're also going to be doing the public hearing as relates to the special town meeting warrant articles, after we do one or two pieces of business, we will open the public hearing. During the period of the public hearing, if you would like to be recognized to comment or question on any of the items under discussion during the public hearing, please raise your hand so I can recognize you. And then wait for my response in order to participate. I don't believe that I'm planning on muting anyone, but so you should be able to unmute yourself. All votes taken this evening will be taken by roll call, and we'll begin by making sure that all members of the committee can be heard and hear. So I'll go ahead and take attendance. And Chris, are you raising your hand already?
Yeah. Heather
okay, well,
is unable to get in. She's getting an error that the host is not available.
No, the host is in another meeting.
The host is in another meeting.
But I'm right here. Is she going from? Well, she knows how to go from the right agenda.
Is she in the waiting room? Ask her to double check the waiting room.
I don't see the waiting room at all. I don't see anybody in the waiting room.
I can try to send her.
I'm sorry?
I can try to send her the original invite. So maybe
yeah, that might be helpful. Yeah, I don't see anything. All right. So anyway, I'm going to take a roll call at this point just to make sure that everybody can hear and be heard. So Chris.
Here.
Dave.
Here.
John.
Here.
Jay. Jay, I can't hear you.
Oh, yes. I thought you said Dave. Sorry.
Peter.
Here.
Okay, thank you. And to see if, yeah, I don't see, there's nobody in the waiting room, so I will keep an eye on that. Although at some point, Peter, you have two screens open, or Chris, either of you have two screens open?
I do.
All right, Peter, I'm going to probably send the host over to you anyway, so that any of the documents that need to be shared, since I still don't have a PDF reader on my computer, don't make faces, Chris, you'll be able to put those up.
Okay. I guess I better get to those documents then.
All right, do we have any public comments from anybody on the committee?
I do.
Well, you're busy now, so.
That's okay. I can sort of multitask.
Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to briefly re-raise the issue that was brought up last week about the decision to purchase the so-called trackless equipment, although somebody made the comment this week that my Volkswagen is a trackless piece of equipment. So perhaps we need to come up with a better, title for said piece of equipment. I thought about making a comment at this week's selectmen's meeting on the topic. I continue to be exercised about the issue, but I decided instead to wait to public comment tonight. I prepared a brief statement that I'd like to read to the members of this committee, and perhaps solicit your opinions on it before moving forward with it. And I think that a public discussion about it, although not part of the agenda, is warranted. Bear with me for a second here. So I'd like to read what I wrote and welcome your comments. This is addressed to the select board. I'd like to express my concern about the decision made by the town manager and the DPW director to move ahead with a $170,000 equipment purchase using Chapter 90 monies during the past few months. This was a major purchase which had been previously considered by the Capital Planning Committee, the Finance Committee, and the Select Board, each of which recommended deferring approval on the purchase until the special town meeting, which was indeed voted on by town meeting voters. I understand that in the intervening months, the existing equipment failed and required replacement, ideally before winter. However, a decision of this consequence without the consultation of the Finance Committee or Capital Planning Committee, having only been discussed publicly as part of the town manager's report during a select board meeting, is at best insulting to the volunteer members of these committees, and at worst is grounds for suspicion. To be clear, I don't think that there was malice in this decision. And had the decision been formally run by the applicable committees in a timely manner, I think it's probable that the purchase would have been approved, though perhaps through an alternative funding scheme. However, the fact that these committees were not consulted and that Chapter 90 funds were used following years of highly publicized concern about the level of funding for road maintenance, and the town having made both policy and debt decisions to address these issues, the use of Chapter 90 funds to make a $170,000 purchase without a proper public discussion is highly concerning. I'd like to request that the Select Board address these concerns and explore if there is something that can be done to ensure that expending any resource by the town, regardless of origin, is properly reviewed and discussed, at least by the Finance Committee, prior to action being taken, and that the Select Board report back publicly. Thank you.
I don't see any hands. I think basically I will go back to, and it is interesting, and I hadn't thought about it last week, but one of the issues that Michelle Walton brought up a lot, and maybe it will definitely be good practice to really get a better handle on off-book transactions that happen, again, and that was a concern for her because there was a lot of grant funding of things going on at Eagle House. There was grant funding of things going on at the library. This is another grant funding item that, basically, because it's happening off book, there should be some discussion in terms of it being following along somehow the fiscal policies in general. And basically, they're not addressed in fiscal policies, and maybe that would be a place that we should start to visit. Dave.
Yep. Dave Passios, 56 Whiting Street, just trying to get back into my mode of announcing that. I've been missing that at a few meetings. Anyway, just wanted to mention, I don't know how much this has been advertised on the media because I've been too busy to listen to media, but we get emails from MMA. The governor submitted a revised 2021 budget this week, and some interesting numbers in there. One of them being the revised budget is built, and this is a quote, is built on a projection that the state tax revenues will be $3.6 billion lower than originally estimated due to the economic slowdown caused by the pandemic. Overall, the updated budget would be balanced through a blend of increased federal assistance, a drawdown of $1.35 billion from the state's rainy day fund, which presently stands at $3.5 billion, which will leave about $2.1 billion in there after this draw. In discussions with some of our local legislators, there are going to need to be some cuts somewhere in the budget to cover all of this. They're saying federal funding is going to cover. They think they can do it with federal funding, but they're not entirely convinced that that's going to be enough. So as we move into the fall and next spring, I think we need to continue to be very, very careful with our reserves and what we commit for the balance of 2021 and carefully be looking at 2022. The town's reserves are in pretty good shape, but we're already seeing that, looking at the numbers from the state, I can't imagine we're going to see level funding for 2022. Those are my personal comments at the end, but I just thought that should be mentioned to the public, any that's listening this evening and listens to this meeting in the future. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, and I will say, yeah, I saw the governor speak on that, and I was a little bit heartened by the fact that he's still prioritizing local and education funding, which is good. So I don't know where they're looking. Chris.
Chris, you're
You're
muted.
muted, Chris.
A lot of people like me muted. To the issue that Peter brought up, I do think that we should look at policy on very large items that come up like that and how to deal with them. And maybe it's part of the capital policy that we talked about last week as well. So I think we should add that to a upcoming agenda when it's not as packed.
Okay. Okay. Any other public comment from anyone on the committee? Okay. I don't see that we have necessarily anybody from the public with us. So,
Hey, Terry,
other than PAC.
I just wanted to say I didn't realize that you had turned over hosting privileges to me, and I don't know how long Heather was waiting in the waiting room, but I apologize, Heather, if you're waiting too long.
Just want to
Now
know
you're
if that room is. Okay,
Fine.
so actually, I do see that. Actually, I don't see that because I see PAC and I keep forgetting they're taping us. So it may not be that they're here to talk about their agenda, their warrant article. So I think first I want to start. I'm opening the public hearing now on the special town meeting warrant, and I want to start with just a comment that I don't have any intention at all of discussing stormwater management this evening. I do know that the planning committee is planning to have their own public hearing on the stormwater bylaw. So unless someone brings a question up with someone else who might have some information about how to respond to it, I have to confess I have not read the entire article. So, and I don't know if anybody else on the finance committee feels prepared to address any of those. So with that said, I think if we just go through in order, I do understand that with the copy that we received has been updated so that the articles are numbered, and they also indicate any place where the Board of Selectmen made a recommendation. So with that, Peter, do you have the warrant articles available to
I
post?
do. I do.
Awesome. So Heather, if you want to go ahead and just start to address them in terms of what we're prepared to discuss tonight, and or what we could be prepared to vote on as we go to them, and which ones we're still waiting on numbers for, that would be great. I would also at this time say that we do have an opportunity for a couple of finance committee meetings between now and then, the special town meeting. So we will be able to take up the some of the warrant articles as we go, so that we can go ahead and try to make a recommendation before we get to the floor of the town meeting. And there was something else that I was going to say, but it went right out of my head. So Heather, if you want to go ahead and start with number 1.
I have slides that may be easier than looking at it in this format. So if you can,
I'm going to turn over hosting to you, Heather.
yes, please.
Okay.
That's it. We passed the buck. That's all we have to do
Pass
is
it
pass the buck.
along.
All right.
All right, you're on the hook.
First article is the budget adjustment article for the current fiscal year, fiscal 21. This is an updated sheet. The only change, so I'll go over a couple, is the reallocated unexpended capital towards the deferred capital projects. I went over that with the finance director. This was discussed at the Board of Selectmen's meeting the other night, and that amount is $6,825.61. That will reduce the overall cost of the capital projects. We'll get further down to the capital projects. There's one update on that. So the cruiser that was on there is for the K9 cruiser, for that to be replaced. But that's a Tahoe, which does not come in a hybrid model. And we received a Green Communities grant where we would receive $5,000 towards the purchase of each hybrid cruiser. The first one being the one at the town meeting, and this would be the second one. So after reviewing all the cruiser projects with the acting chief, we could swap out a cruiser that was up for replacement in fiscal 22 that could be purchased as a hybrid cruiser and delay the K9 cruiser. And that is acceptable. It's as far as mileage and everything for that cruiser. The Special Purpose Stabilization Fund, the update is, my recommendation is that number be 250,000. As I reviewed all the projects that were submitted for last year's capital plan and the 5-year plan, and in fiscal 22, there is approximately $500,000 in requests for vehicles and equipment, and that's what we set up the Special Purpose Stabilization Fund for. So depositing 250,000 into that account would offset those expenses in fiscal 22 for that plan. There is a payment of a prior year bill in the amount of $150. It's the only one we expect.
Peter has his hand up.
Yeah, 2 questions. The cruiser that we'll be purchasing with the current plan, what is now the current plan, is still a Tahoe, correct? It's just not the model that is suitable for a K9, is that?
No, the one at the June town meeting?
No, the one that we're about to purchase, the one that you're now recommending. It's a
No.
hybrid, but is it a Tahoe or is it a
No.
different model?
Tahoe doesn't come in a hybrid model.
Oh, okay,
It would be it's a Ford Explorer with the
okay. In doing that, are there additional costs associated with that? For example, radio mounts and those kinds of things that couldn't normally be recycled from an old one if we're going from a Chevy to a Ford?
The number that the acting chief gave was the 67 as well for that, and that's what was in the plan.
Then that's fully outfitted.
Yes.
Okay.
Dave?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the OPEB deposit. There was one member of the Board of Selectmen Tuesday night that basically expressed his concern again about our finances going forward and felt that that could be pushed off until final budget adjustments at the Springtown meeting for the 2021 budget year. And traditionally, we have done that at the beginning of the annual Springtown meeting. Any adjustments like that needed to be made before the 2022 budget was approved at town meeting. So it's basically just like pushing it off to another special town meeting, but it's rolled into the beginning of Springtown meeting. The other question I have is, do we have the present balance in the special purpose stabilization fund?
I will get to that in a slides. It's on a slide.
Okay, thank you.
I was going to ask a question about that, but would you prefer to wait till that article?
Sure. That'll be easier.
Yeah, I would. It will help my notes. But actually, if you're, and then if you guys could lower your hands so that I know when you raise them again.
Yeah, I'm jumping between screens here.
Thanks.
So this is Article 3 is Article 2 for the capital projects. This is an updated spreadsheet showing the cruiser as that cruiser. That's the capital improvement project number for the cruiser that I'm recommending that we swap with the Tahoe in order to save the $5,000 that we would receive from Green Communities. So, and it also reflects the unexpended capital amount of the $686.26. These slides we went over last week, so unless there's any questions, this project is for the public safety carport reconfiguration.
I had a question on the cruiser. So we primarily have a fleet of Explorers, right? So this would be the only Tahoe in our fleet?
No. It's
No,
not.
I believe there are 4 Tahoes in all. The K9 cruiser is a Tahoe because that's the size that's needed for to outfit it with the cage and all the K9 equipment. The one that would be the cruiser to the swapping out would replace a Tahoe as well, and that one would go into our spare. So that was one.
Okay, thank you.
Just a
And I
picture.
think actually just for some historical perspective, and maybe Dave can speak to this a little bit because he's been, or Jay, they've been pretty involved with the Green Communities Task Force, is that the vehicles, the requirement to be eligible for some of the grants and to be considered green communities, there are vehicles that are used for certain purpose that that have to meet that have to be switched over to hybrid somehow. So it's my understanding of the history of this. So basically the town's been moving to convert as many vehicles as are not exempt from this, are converting as many vehicles as possible over to hybrid models. And if I'm lying, please correct me.
So public safety vehicles are exempt from having to, so we have to report every year any changes in our vehicles on the Green Communities annual report. Public safety is exempt. But for instance, like the animal control, that was one vehicle we had to, it hurt us not to, and we could have lost our Green Communities status if we didn't receive a certain mile per gallon vehicle and energy efficiency vehicle for that vehicle. But there were funds available in the competitive grant towards purchase of hybrid cruisers, but it's not ones that count against us if we don't.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Just a question on if there's someone in the waiting room, where do I see that? I might participant.
It would
top
be
of the
above
participants.
participants. Yeah.
Okay, I don't see anyone, but I thought I saw something flashing. Okay. Great. This is the Ritter Kitchen remodel project for 12,000. The senior center kitchen remodel is on the deferred project for 22,000. The library replacement of library carpet for 126,000. Design for ADA compliant ramp at the Ritter building for 25,500. Installation of a parking lot at North Cemetery for 20,000. For DPW capital deferred project, the dump truck with the plow for 58,833. And this would replace the 2006, which would be transferred down to the school department, which replaced their 2,000. As I explained regarding the cruiser, the original request was to replace the Tahoe Canine Cruiser. The town had received in our Green Communities competitive grant $10,000 towards the purchase of 2 hybrid cruisers, 5,000 for each. And because there's not a hybrid version of the Tahoe, we're recommending to switch to the Canine Cruiser out with the replacement cruiser on the fiscal 22 plan. And this capital request is for 67, and once we receive the reimbursement from Green Communities, we can reallocate that $5,000 at the annual town meeting towards future capital items. So actually reallocate $10,000 total. For school capital requests, there's the installation of AC at the Turkey Hill Elementary School admin area. And this capital project is for 28,000. Payment of prior year expenses. We have one known and only anticipated bill for $150. The stabilization fund, I have not made a recommendation yet on this. I'm waiting for final figures for the streetlights article and would recommend backfilling into that number once that number is known.
So Heather, you'd take that from the funding of regular stabilization instead of the special purpose? That's what you're saying basically, right?
No, so there's still an unappropriated balance that we have available to appropriate. So reducing whatever that balance is by the streetlights amount, I would recommend that balance be placed in the regular stabilization account.
Okay, thank you for that explanation.
Is it your intent to leave an unappropriated balance again this year, or to take the entire unappropriated balance that we land on and put that into stabilization?
I would not recommend leaving an unappropriated balance. So we could
still appropriate that at the beginning of Springtown meeting, correct?
Out of stabilization?
No,
No.
If you left an unappropriated balance, we could appropriate it.
No, because that's if we get our tax rate is set in November. So
Heather,
we don't appropriate that. Yep, go ahead, Karen.
I think that the balance that Peter was talking about was unappropriated free cash that we left on the table last year.
Right.
So that's not the same thing as what this is here. This is part of our raise and appropriate, the current surplus that we have.
Okay, so let me restate the question. Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
Is there unappropriated free cash?
We just received our certified free cash from the closeout of fiscal 20.
Right. Oh, okay, and that's rolled into it.
Mhm.
Okay, fair enough.
No, so those funds, there's no recommendation to use those funds at the special town meeting.
Right. I understand. Okay, yep. Thanks, Karen.
Welcome.
Special purpose stabilization, my recommendation is to deposit $250,000 into that account based on looking at the 5-year capital plan and what we have for needs for vehicles and equipment in fiscal 22, approximately 500,000. So that would be used to supplement that account. So this account was created in May of 2017 for vehicles and equipment projects. And it helps subsidize our annual appropriation for capital when needed. We haven't tapped into it yet. We've been putting money into it all along since that town meeting. And the balance is $940,470.
So we did not fund this past town meeting at all, right? The special purpose stabilization fund?
Yes, correct.
And what, I just simply don't remember the projected capital expenditures for the coming year when we looked at what's on the forecast for capital items.
If you include Vertex?
No, I'm speaking specifically about, the vehicles and equipment that are forecasted here. What are the major items?
For fiscal 22?
Yeah.
So there's a couple DPW vehicles. There's the cruisers, for the police department. And I believe there was one vehicle for the school committee as well, school department.
Okay, so there isn't a $200,000 fire truck in this. This is
No.
smaller, but nonetheless expensive vehicles.
Yeah, there's one of the DPW, it's one of the larger trucks, is 211,000, I think.
Can this only be used for vehicles and equipment? Can it be used for land or property?
So you could transfer money, town meeting could transfer money out of this account for another purpose. But that's what it was set up for.
Okay.
Is it your intention, Heather, to tap this fund in May?
Not knowing what the financial picture is yet for the state aid for fiscal 22. If we need to tap it, then I think that's why putting the $250,000 into it would be a good supplement if we don't have enough available in appropriation, raise and appropriation.
Is there any meaningful difference between whether we, if all we had was $250,000, or let's say we had $500,000 and we decided to put $250 here, $250 in the regular stabilization fund? Is there any real difference in terms of which one we tap or how we tap it?
So the purposes of those accounts, I would say, is the real difference. This was set up specifically for vehicles and equipment for our capital projects. For regular stabilization, we want to maintain at least the 5% balance in that account based on our omnibus budget. So that, I would say, is the real discerning purpose. So anything, I would not recommend tapping into stabilization that would bring us below that 5%.
Fair enough. But I mean, assuming that we had the $250,000, we were above the 5% level, we decided to put this in regular stabilization, and then come spring, we decided to take that out and put it toward the funding of vehicles versus taking it from this fund. It really doesn't, assuming we're adhering to policy, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, I guess perception is right. So if we're putting this in specifically for capital needs and we take it out of regular stabilization for capital needs instead, I guess that's.
Yeah, I guess
I think,
my personal perception here, I'm sorry, Terry.
I was just going to say psychologically and perceptually is you don't want to hit the regular special the regular stabilization fund, because once you go that route to do it for something that could be otherwise planned for, once you go that route, it kind of makes it easier to go back to the well. And the whole purpose of the capital stabilization fund, when that was initially set up, was, you know, looking at how many years out the fire engines were. So, and, you know, and once those hit, there's always a big hit. So it was really set up because it's easier psychologically to go and move it out of a stabilization fund that was set up for that purpose. But that's, and you have a lot of people who are just, you know, like ill at ease in terms of trying to hit the regular stabilization fund. We haven't taken anything out of that, you know, in forever. I mean, I don't know the time it was hit.
So my thing, and I applaud what was done here, and I totally get it, and I think it makes great sense. Specific to this $250,000, my thought is, you know, we may be going into a new fiscal year where if there isn't, you know, a substantial stimulus package that benefits cities and towns, we may be having a really hard time paying for our operational budget next year, let alone our capital budget. And so when you talk about perception, I think the perception of pulling from this to pay for operations would be equally bad. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, my inclination right now is not to support this, but rather to support putting every red cent in regular stabilization to give ourselves the utmost in flexibility come spring.
Okay.
As far as operationally, I wouldn't normally recommend this, but we, with our free cash just being certified at 1.8 million, that would be a resource that we can tap into to help our operating budget, to balance our operating budget, in addition to the other needs.
Which again is something that we've stated we don't want to do or intend to do, because that creates a, you know, I mean, it's one bad option versus another, but I appreciate your point.
I think it's a better option, and it's a larger amount available than we would have from our stabilization account.
But on the other hand, if you needed to, you could draw from both.
Correct. Yeah. So OPEB.
Yeah, and if we get that bad, we're in big trouble. So hopefully,
I don't believe it.
The OPEB Trust Fund, this was created in November of 2010, and this is other post-employment benefits. Mm-hmm. And we postponed putting this money into this account. As far as bond rating companies, when we did go out to bond, that was a question when we went through our bond rating, and a continued non-deposit into this liability account is considered a weakness regarding our debt.
Yet on the other hand, when we questioned our professionals in regards to this before Springtown meeting, they felt under the circumstances it would not hurt us, even if we didn't put it in at all this year. Is that correct?
Aaron, do you want to add to that?
I think what Dave is saying is correct, but I think it was basically due to the crisis that we were facing because of the pandemic. But I think overall, without COVID-19, it would definitely look negative upon us if we just were funding it all along and then suddenly decided not to. I still think that if we have the funds available to put into that account, that as far as our financial policies go, we should do that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I will also say that at the time that we were setting up putting money into the account, one thing that is true is that the OPEB Trust Fund, again, if we are in a bad situation and needed to draw on that to pay for health insurance costs for retirees, we could do that, so that we could supplement the current budget with that amount if we had to.
but it would limit us to those categories. It wouldn't allow us to use that money for anything to supplement a deficit in the budget. I think that's
Well,
the
no,
point.
but you would basically just move the money that you were going to use for health insurance over to wherever it was that you needed to plug the hole.
We pay plenty in insurance. I think we could easily, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think basically you would just take 100, like say if we needed to pull $100,000 out to supplement the insurance payment, then that's $100,000. It doesn't have to come out of another part of the budget or can go to another part of the budget.
So,
That's
okay.
But that's just, I mean, we're not voting on it at this point, so we can probably just continue on, I think. Unless, I'm sorry, Peter.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. Dave made the point earlier that this came up in the selectmen's meeting. One of the select board members. I gotta build the habit of calling it the select board meeting. One of the members talked about possibly deferring this to spring town meeting, just as a method of giving us the utmost in flexibility. Given the thumbnail picture that Heather just provided around free cash and what we're putting into various stabilization accounts, and what we would do first and cut first, in my mind, this is a no-brainer. I think we can and should fund this now.
Okay.
What's the goal for the balance in this trust fund?
$1 gazillion. Just keep going until we have to start drawing it out.
Enough that we don't have to raise taxes to pay our liability when it starts coming due, when all of our retirees start putting us in the poorhouse.
One should be able to forecast what that balance should.
Every few years there's an actuary.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Heather. Yeah, I don't even know when we're due for the next actuary report, but usually they come in with a number like $30 million or something.
I think it's closer to 50, right, Karen?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think if I recall correctly, it's 50 million plus.
Oh my God.
But it's also one of those things that you set the target, but it doesn't mean that you put that amount of money in it, and because it's basically it's a moving target, and it's dependent on who you have working for the town, what the demographics are, how quickly you're using it, how many retirees you have. It's a fascinating and riveting presentation, and I think. Are we due for that again this year, or is it next year?
We had one within the last 6 months, right, Karen?
Yeah, there was an update that was done based on June 30th of 2020, and there'll be another update at the close of 21.
Okay, but we usually have one of the actuaries come and present every several years. And I don't know. I mean, we can talk about doing that again.
It would be for fiscal 21 that it would be a full actuary that's done. So I would think that we would want to have Parker come in once that is complete and give the finance committee an update at that time.
Okay, thank you.
And do we invest this money, and at what rate if we do?
I honestly don't know what the rate of interest is off the top of my head, but it is invested at Bartholomew, and it's not with all of our regular trust funds. It's by itself and in a more aggressive investment plan, so that the interest rate that's paid is higher than what we would normally see on our other trust funds. But I can get you that information, but off the top of my head, I don't know what the interest rate is currently.
What?
Okay, moving right along.
Article 7 is the funding for the first year of the fire collective bargaining agreement for fiscal 21. That still, the board is meeting on that issue on Tuesday night. So I do not have an update tonight. Fiscal 21 for the clerical union, the same thing, funding for the first year of that agreement, and the board will be voting on that on Tuesday as well. Article 9 is to transfer funds into the capital line of the Public Educational Government Access and Cable Related Enterprise Fund, amount of 120,000. This was deferred at the annual town meeting because they didn't have sufficient funds to make that transfer at that time.
Is the source of this funding what is the source of this funding?
Cable.
The
I was
cable
just gonna
fees?
say- if I could, I was just gonna say, because the cable, PEG access went to an enterprise fund in FY21. When the budget got voted for FY21, it had to be based on what their anticipated revenues were for FY21. And with an enterprise fund, for FY20, excuse me. So with an enterprise fund, well, for the budget that got voted for FY21, it's based on their estimated revenues that they would actually receive in FY21. That number was, I think, right around $200,000. So at the time that they were trying to set their budget for FY21 and have $120,000 for possible capital expenses in FY21, they didn't have the estimated revenues to support that expenditure. So they had to wait until their retained earnings were certified, which has just happened. And so now the PEG Access Committee themselves, for retained earnings, they have a balance of $750,238. And that's money that they've had all along, but because of the change in the accounting of their special revenue fund versus their enterprise fund, you have to wait to get the certification from the Department of Revenue before they consider those funds available. So their retained earnings were certified at the close of FY20 at $750,238, and the funding source for this article would be retained earnings.
Right, and would this fund be a fund we could use if we were to outfit new studios, like at TC Passios, if that were to?
Yes.
Yeah, that's actually one of the reasons why they have that, that fund.
Thank you.
So,
John?
so with that $120,000, is $20,000, is the $120,000 just to get them through this period before they get retained earnings certification, and they'll pay us back, or is that just, or not?
Oh, this is the money. They're spending that money.
No, that's,
This is, okay, the source is the $750,000.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm on the wrong page. Thanks.
All right.
okay.
Article 10 is for the Sewer Reserve Capacity Stabilization Fund to transfer $68,097.59 into their Reserve Capacity Stabilization Fund. And so essentially this was created in fiscal 16. It's like their regular stabilization fund. And they received these funds in fiscal 21. That's in excess of their budgets that they're able to deposit this into this stabilization fund. And this comes from retained earnings. Article 11 is a Revote of Borrowing. It's, I'll read the article, appropriate all or a portion of the premium paid to the town upon the sale of the town's $1,695,000 general obligation municipal purpose loan of 2020 bonds dated May 21st, 2020, to pay costs of projects financed by such bonds and to reduce amounts authorized to be borrowed for such projects by a like amount, and or to reserve all or a portion of the net premium appropriated for future capital projects. And it's appropriating these bond premiums and rescinding borrowing authorization for the pavement management and middle school, high school bonds issued in May 2020, And there's a small amount, in the amount of $3,543.11 that's reserved for future capital as required by law. Karen, maybe, do you want to add anything that's pay down in those amounts?
No, I don't have anything to add other than to say that the overall bond issuance is reduced by the amount of any premium that we received. I was just trying to open up an Excel file, but I couldn't get to it because I can't close this down. But so any premium that we receive, we reduce the borrowing on the projects that the premiums are related to. And so for the pavement management project and for the middle school, high school project, we received rather significant amounts of premiums through the life of bond issuances that reduce the amount that the town had to borrow by whatever those premiums were. And then, as Heather said, we also had a little bit of a surplus, and under the statutes where we are required to put that in a reserve that can only be used to fund any future capital projects.
That's good, because I think we might have some.
Absolutely.
Article 12 is an amendment to the salary administration plan by adding the positions of intermittent heavy equipment operator and principal assessor to the comp and class plan.
And this is basically something that
Personnel department.
is it going to have any kind of a financial impact this year?
No, they're already funded within the budget.
Okay.
So, and they've been previously approved by the personnel committee.
Okay, so I guess my question goes to, is it likely that there's going to be a position at the DPW that's going to be reassigned as an intermittent heavy equipment operator? Or is this a position that may or may not exist? Yeah.
It's similar to what you would say as seasonal. So we had no ability to hire people who were not employees of the town and that could use the town's equipment due to liability reasons. So we needed to create a position to hire these seasonal type positions, and we'd be covered for insurance as well.
Okay. And then the principal assessor, is that just being reassigned from one grade to another?
That's a new position that
New
was,
position.
we had a third party.
That's right. Okay.
Why did we move away from a third party?
The Board of Assessors wish to move in that direction as far as service levels and accountability. And it was, in my opinion, a very good move. The new principal assessor is doing a great job. She's found additional properties to add to the new growth. Remember our original estimate was the 173,400. Our certified new growth number is 308,000. She's done a fantastic job so far.
Peter?
Is that new role added to our space requirements?
It's included in the space requirements.
I don't think you answered my question. With the advent of the new role, are our space requirements greater?
No.
Okay.
No, because the third party that they had an employee in the building 2 days a week that required space.
Okay.
Article 13 and 14 both have to deal with 250 Howard Street. And so this article is regarding the full purchase of the property if the board were to exercise their first right of refusal. And with that, the purchase and sale price was $50,000. What the Open Space Committee and Conservation have been working on with the board is to work with the purchasers and the owner that a portion of that property would be donated to conservation. So that's in process. And this article has to do with the accepting the donation piece for conservation.
Okay, so one has to do with accepting a donation, and the other, what was the 50,000 for? Or was that we're just going to do one or the other?
It does include the 50,000 in this article as well. I think it was so Brandon Kebby of the Open Space Committee submitted this, and it was, I think, a belt and suspenders approach to covering it all. But the previous article would cover just a straight purchase of the property.
Okay.
Has town council reviewed this article yet? I know there was a lot of discussion around how this went down.
Yes. Yeah. He's reviewed all the articles.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Right. He's been also in touch with the attorney for the owner, the current owner?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Article 15 has to do with the tax increment financing agreement that the board, select board is working on with Greenhouse LLC, otherwise known as Bright Farms, for the property behind Hanford's. So this, we discussed this last week, and the board at their meeting on Tuesday wished to proceed with a 8-year TIF agreement if Bright Farms is agreeable to that. It would allow for the same amount of savings, just in a shorter time frame from them, but about 35,000 more in savings for the, or more in revenue for the town over the 10 years. Peter,
go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just curious as to how this negotiation is actually being handled, and is the expectation that we'll go into town meeting with what is effectively a proposal, understanding that the town meeting article authorizes the Board of Selectmen, but is there an expectation that negotiations are ongoing, or how does this come about?
the expectation is that we'd go into town meeting with a proposal.
Okay. And are you leading the negotiations on this, or how is that happening?
I am working with Bright Farms, yes, on this, and I've worked with the principal assessor as well. Okay.
I know that there's a lot of language around, jobs and other stuff related to that. My view on this is that it's hard to tell with these TIFs if there's any real benefit to the town. If the town said, no, we're not interested in this, if they just do it anyway, or they'd go find another town who is willing to give them a TIF deal or not. Like it's kind of it's like a blind sale, right? It's like we're buying a mattress here to a certain degree. And I want to encourage business and the establishment of business, but I'm also sensitive to just the fairness of all the other businesses that we have in town that pay the same tax rate that every resident pays, that sponsors our sports teams, that donates to various organizations in town, and along comes a new kid at school, and we're going to give them $1 million or near that over 10 years. And I don't know that my hesitation will be satisfied or properly addressed. But I just feel like I don't know if we're getting anything for this. I feel like it's going to happen anyway. So why should we be doing it?
I agree with you, Peter, and I think when you look at this land, it's absolutely ideal for this company. It's right next to both Hannaford and Walmart, which per their corporate website and their bond issuances and all that sort of thing, they is what they're looking for. And they're also looking to grow, like 10 more of these in the next couple of years. So I think it's really advantageous for the company that's going in, and I'm all for that company going in, but
As am I, yeah.
$1 million worth of tax savings when, there's small businesses that are struggling right now to keep their doors opening, and we're not doing any TIF agreements with them. I'm very torn on this one.
Is there just one other question on this is there a pro forma that you've been made aware of, Heather? Like, if you looked at the business plan, do you have visibility of what the anticipated profitability of this project is as has been proposed to their investors?
No, we can't make that a requirement of the TIF as far as if they make so much money, they have to pay us more.
No, that's not what I'm implying. What I'm implying is, have we looked at all of the available information as part of this negotiation is really my question. And if a pro forma exists, has anybody seen it so that we have a clear, we are being asked to invest in this property. And if they're going to investors and saying, give us $1 million to be part of our corporation, then chances are those investors are being presented with a pro forma business plan. And I'm just wondering if we've seen anything like that.
No, just that the businesses that they have in other states doing same type of work.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean,
so
that's another thing I was thinking of when I was looking at this is, have we reached out to those other areas to say, are they actually kind of following through on what they promised? Are they a good, occupant?
The language of the TIF can tie them to certain obligations, and that's how the draft that I've worked with council on is set up as far as the number of jobs that would be established and that they be Lunenburg residents, that their construction use Lunenburg businesses to improve and make those investments to their facility and the land while they're developing it. Those types of obligations. Beyond the real estate, the personal property is not included in this exemption.
All right, and then just the bottom line number for an 8-year agreement in terms of what we're not receiving in taxes. What's the total amount of the total value of the TIF over the 8 years?
Well, the whole projection is based on our current tax rate, the $18.12, and with no inflation built into that, as our tax rate fluctuates as to the values. So without any, using that as a assumption, it was $996,000.
Okay. Dave?
Yeah, two things. I seem to remember hearing that they have a facility already in operation here in Massachusetts. Isn't that correct?
I don't see it on their.
No.
Little Leaf has one in Devon's, but that's not their company.
Yeah, no, I don't.
And then the other thing is that how soon will an analysis of the savings over the 8 years be tabulated and available with the 2.5% increase built into it? I think the Board of Selectmen asked for that, so I'm assuming that's going to be available sometime in the near future.
The next meeting. Their next meeting.
Could that be
So it'll be
forwarded to us
on-
after it's released?
Yes.
Thank you.
Heather, what gets locked in, the percentages or the dollar values?
The percentages, the percent of the discount. So if it's year one, 100%, it's based on whatever the assessed value.
Okay.
Article 16 is a presentation from the TCP Building Design Committee, from the committee or representatives from the design firm.
I think for the most part, that's going to be from the design firm, but that hasn't been finalized yet.
They're going
Article,
to talk fast, Dave.
Excuse me?
They're going to talk fast, though, right?
Brevity. Brevity is the secret to effective communication.
A lot of razzle dazzle with all their fancy electronic equipment, scanners and drones and all that kind of stuff.
Going to be being buzzed at the meeting. Okay.
Article 17 is 111 Multis Road rear. Conservation Commission is asking that this piece of land that is under the care, custody, and control of the select board be transferred to conservation for conservation purposes.
Does it matter?
Yeah.
Does it matter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once, I mean, in
The
what
reason I asked,
value or?
I guess no. The reason why I ask is, does it matter whether the town is under the care, custody, and control of the select board or the conservation commission? You know, like, why would you make that kind of an assignment? And once that assignment is made, does that make that piece of property unavailable for another purpose?
Once it's transferred to conservation purposes, it takes a special act of the legislature to change that. It's much more restrictive versus if it were within the select board's control, it can be voted at a town meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. This property is the same situation, 970 Northwest Townsend Road rear.
And these have also been reviewed by the Open Space Committee?
Yes, I believe so. They took a vote, I believe.
Yes, it was on open space weighed in on it. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Streetlights article. So that is Mr. Black. This was tabled at the annual town meeting. At that time, the two options, the costs were, if the town were to have Unitil convert the LED fixtures, it would be $66,000. If the town were to purchase those outright, the estimate was $91,000. But I'm waiting for updated figures from Mr. Black.
Mr. Black. Yeah, I did try to reach out to him this week. I hadn't heard anything back from him. But I think, I whether we make a recommendation tonight or not, we can certainly invite him again for another meeting if people want to be able to ask questions directly.
Right. Unless
Harry, just so you know, he doesn't respond to the Lunenburg Online account.
Well, this is not helpful to me.
I know. I'm just making that comment because I learned that the hard way.
It was, when I was sending it, I was thinking that I probably should have CC'd you on it because I know that you touched base with him. But I didn't think of.
I've tried to reach him a couple times over the last week, and I know he was out of town at the beginning of the week, and I played phone tag with him today, and we weren't able to connect. And the last article.
Yeah, the last article we're just going to skip right over.
I want to read every page into the record.
No, if anybody has anything that they want, if people have yes, you can go ahead and discuss this. But I think that this is something that we just have to put in place, or have to replace the current one we have, or they're bringing it to us now so that we can be better prepared when we have to vote on it again at regular town meeting. I'm not really sure whether it's how time sensitive this one is.
So I do have a question on this, and it's one of ignorance because I haven't read the article yet. There's been some talk in the past about creating a impermeable surface fee to fund our stormwater liabilities or requirements. Is that included or addressed in this article?
No.
Okay.
Are there any,
I
Um,
costs associated with this, or is it kind of revenue neutral, or?
Good question. I would have to ask the land use director that. Basically, this the planning board worked with our consultant, our stormwater consultant, and what we had to do to get up to date in our regulations based on the MS4 requirements.
Well, I know I had a brief conversation with Matthew Allison just to ask if there was going to be a public hearing held by the planning board. I just can't remember. I thought he had said it was next week, but I don't see anything posted, so I'm not sure.
They have a meeting on the 26th, so maybe that's going to be the.
Well, that looks, I couldn't tell from reading it. I know that they're having a hearing on something, but that one looked more like plans. But they may add it to it. I don't know. But basically, I would just keep an eye out for when they do that, because I think that's when we're going to get the best information in terms of what's in there. And which is one of the other reasons why I'm comfortable holding off on this. But with that, okay, I'm going to assume that there's nobody in the waiting room.
Let me just look. I don't see anybody. Do you want me to stop screen sharing so I can turn it back over?
Well, not yet, in case anybody wants to go back to anything. I should ask at this time, is there anybody on the committee that feels the need to go back to any particular slide before we close the public hearing?
I do, and just go back to the slide, but Article 20 on the stormwater management. Is there any indication of their potential effects that may depress or new growth, and therefore it might depress potential new growth or not? Or don't we know?
So
I have.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Terry.
No, you go ahead. I have no information.
I don't. So, John, your question is, by making these changes, will it affect building, and what values of properties will be, essentially, right? I don't have the answer to that, so
Yeah.
I can look into it.
Okay, thanks.
Good. I might recommend, because we, as participants, we can't see the waiting room. So I would recommend that we just double check the waiting room, whoever's hosting, and just make sure that there's nobody there before we proceed.
Looking at the participant list, there's nothing about.
Nothing at the top. Okay.
Okay.
Very good. Okay, if nobody does want to go back to any of the other slides, then we probably can turn you loose from this, and then we'll, if you can give the host back to Peter, and we'll go ahead and, Peter, if you can post the special town meeting articles, and we'll go through them starting with number 1. And then again, so the public meeting at this time is closed, and we are going to go through and see which ones we might feel comfortable making recommendations tonight. which ones we want to defer to town meeting, and which ones we might come back to in the next couple of weeks. So, starting with number 1, to the budget number itself, that's listed as a to be determined. I'm assuming that that's still true, or you have a final number you want to talk about at this point?
I'm sorry, Terry, what was that?
Oh.
For which one?
Number 1.
Number 1, Article
One.
1 on the budget adjustment.
No, everything before the committee right now is the anticipated changes.
Okay, so basically, if we were going to vote on the FY 2021 budget adjustment article, that would be what was originally shown on the opening slide. But we don't have the dollar figure. Do we have the dollar figure in terms of what the total amount will end up being?
If you come back to that, I can tell you. So that's
We'll come back to that.
some of those, that slide shows other articles like the capital plan. It shows the stabilization, the special purpose stabilization, which is, they're all not covered under Article 1. So it's
Right.
changes to the fire and police department is one, a reduction in our health insurance line was the other
Right.
cost. The change to the Board of Health line and changes to the facilities for the PPE and extra cleaning cost, and a change to the IT line. I think that was.
How is this going to be reflected in the warrant? Are we going to reprint the omnibus with the changes, or are we just going to print the line changes?
No, what we always do is it's a little, it will be like a spreadsheet, small version of spreadsheet where it will show the appropriation, the change, and the new totals. So just in the lines that are affected.
And you don't anticipate any changes beyond what you've briefed to us thus far in those numbers?
No.
Did you send that last week in an email?
I believe so. The adjustment sheet.
Yeah. For last week's meeting when you presented it last week too.
Yes.
Hang on a sec.
In the OneDrive.
I'm not on that,
Chris,
but I,
looking at it, Chris, if you're looking at it and you can see a bottom line number,
Well, she needs to take out special parts because that shows different warrant articles. And Article 1 only refers to certain lines in the spreadsheet.
right.
Oh,
Therein lies the
okay.
problem, right?
So if we could just look at it and pull it out and then use the calculator and figure out the actual amount. Is all we need to do is look at it again, and then she can tell us which ones are for Article 1.
So this is the most
Karen's
recent
still
one.
here?
This is the most recent one that I have, which is out of date, right? This is
Right. And have that stabilization fund.
right.
special-
That's not germane to this article.
No.
Right.
But,
Right.
okay, so which ones are for this article?
So from the top, so it will be a reduction for the health insurance line.
Okay,
Then going down to the 30,161 would be addition.
uh-huh,
The addition of the 38,928, the 3,816, the 9,000, 24,000, the 11,745, the 27,000, and that's all. That's all of those line items.
Not state assessments and charges?
No, that's just, that shows up on, we'll do a revenue expense sheet. So you'll see that,
Okay.
but that doesn't affect that. It's not within the operating budget. That's an available charge. That's a charge on them.
Okay, does anyone have a feeling about whether, you want to make a recommendation on Article 1 at this time?
Terry, I have a quick question. I had my microphone off. I started to ask it and then realized you guys couldn't hear me. I don't need it back up again, but the three numbers that were in red, if I remember correctly, those are anticipated costs after any kind of COVID funding is available to get us through the fiscal year. Is that
Yeah.
correct? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so if anybody wants to make a motion regarding a recommendation, we can probably at this point state it as presented in the motion, and then when we get to the town meeting, we can clarify that to the dollar amount of the change. Or we can just pass over or defer until town meeting.
I prefer this
Okay,
go to
everybody-
print with a recommendation. I move that we recommend approval to Article 1 as presented by the town manager
Today.
today.
Second.
On October 15th,
Yeah.
2020.
Okay, and that was seconded by Dave Passio. So, roll call, all in favor. Peter,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Jay.
Aye.
How come I can't see anybody else?
Heather.
Heather, are you,
Yeah, here. Aye.
did I get Dave?
No,
No.
No, not.
And
which
I
one,
for
right?
myself. I'm trying to see if I'm missing anybody else, but, I for myself.
I think that's. Did you get John?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did I get John?
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
I can
Thank you.
say aye again and make it equal.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's like basically I can't look at the articles and look at the,
Right.
actually, let me put up the participant list and I'll do it that way. All right, Article 2, capital plan article. Do we have anybody that has a feeling one way or the other around that one?
I'd like to see us hold off on this. Capital planning has not reviewed it yet.
Oh, when's their next meeting?
It's coming up on Tuesday, October 20th.
So we can wait till. Okay.
That's fine, we can defer it to town meeting.
Or
Does
next.
anybody else have, or not? I mean,
Right.
that's,
Heather, that 22nd, when does the warrant go into printing? Is it around the 20th at the deadline for anything, including recommendations?
Yes.
Yeah, so basically if we defer tonight, it needs to
Yeah.
go to town
Well,
meeting.
I mean, we can go ahead and take a vote in the next several weeks on it and then be prepared to
Yeah.
recommend. It just won't show up in the warrant.
Right.
Okay.
So if anybody, okay, so at this point then we'll pass over that one. Do I have to vote to pass over?
You deferred, right?
Yeah,
I think we have to vote to
Okay.
defer.
so somebody has to make a motion to defer. So I guess that was Dave making a motion to
Yep,
defer.
I move we defer any recommendation on this to town meeting.
We'll
Do I have
second
a
that.
second?
Is
John.
my-
John Henshaw,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
Peter Beardmore,
Aye.
Dave Passios,
Aye.
Heather Stroka,
Aye.
John Henshaw,
Aye.
Chris Menard,
Aye.
Jay Simeone.
Aye.
Jay, did I get you on the last one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Article 3.
Terry,
Payment
you
of prior
didn't
year-
vote.
Yeah, you gotta vote
Oh,
there.
aye for me.
Mhm.
Gonna be a long night.
Oh my God.
We've never roll called like this, I don't think. Okay, so we do roll call. Article 3, see if we'll cover $150 from last year. Do we anticipate any additional funds needing to be appropriated?
I don't anticipate any other bills.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion on Article 3, payment of prior year expenses in the amount of $150.
So moved.
Peter,
Second.
Second.
was that, Heather, did you say that?
Yeah, seconded that.
Okay, thank you. All in favor, Peter,
Aye.
Dave,
I,
Heather,
Aye.
Jay,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
I for myself. Article 4, the regular stabilization fund, we can't take any action on because we don't have a number. Special purpose stabilization fund, Article 5, moving $250,000 into the special purpose stabilization fund. Do we have anyone wanting to take any action on that one?
Let me see.
I would recommend approval, recommendation.
Okay, so Chris Menard makes a motion to recommend approval. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Other seconds?
Yep.
Any discussion, or we'll just go ahead to vote?
I want to just make a comment here. I think without having a full view of the available funds, including what's potentially going to go into the regular stabilization fund, what happens with the streetlights and a few other things, I'm not at a point where I want to put a specific dollar amount into this fund. I think it needs to be balanced in totality with the other amounts. And at this point, I would be a no.
and
welcome,
I
Peter.
would mimic that sentiment.
All right. Well, at this
And-
point, what I will say is that we can basically go ahead and vote the recommendation. If we make a recommendation, we can certainly revisit it at a special town meeting when we have more information available, hopefully. But anyway, we'll go ahead and take a vote on the motion since we have it on the table. Peter,
No.
Chris,
Aye.
Dave,
No,
Heather,
Aye.
John,
No.
Jay,
No.
and I would be an aye. And I think that that was a no's have it. So basically at this point, that we are not recommending approval at this time. 4, 2, 3.
I would make a motion that we defer on this article.
So you
Second.
would rather just, okay.
Yeah.
Well, we
Okay.
just,
So, If
We did not vote to recommend, we voted not to recommend approval, but that does not mean we recommended disapproval.
thank you. Okay.
Right.
Okay. So, then we'll go ahead with all in favor of deferring. Peter,
Aye.
Which article is this?
wait. Who
Same
made the
article.
motion to defer?
I
Peter.
made the motion.
Peter who did-
Peter made a motion to
Dave?
defer. Dave seconded.
Okay.
And this is to defer Article 5 to town meeting. And Peter voted aye. Dave Passios.
I'm,
Heather Soroka,
All right.
Jay Simeone,
Aye.
John Henshaw,
Aye.
Chris Menard,
Aye.
and I for myself. So again, that will appear in the warrant article as defer to town meeting, or defer to town meeting. It's not defer. Is it defer?
yes,
Defer.
Thank you. Okay.
recommendation
OPEB
to
trust
be made at town meeting.
Thank you. OPEB Trust Fund, Article 6, to raise and appropriate, to put $110,000 into the OPEB Trust Fund. Do I have anyone wanting to take action on this one?
I move we defer to special town meeting.
Before we defer, do we have, can we see if there's anybody that wants to make a motion to?
I've got a motion. If I get a second for it, it's on the floor.
That's true.
Why?
Okay, so basically at this point, Dave Passios has made a motion to defer to town meeting Article 6. Do we have a second?
Remember to asking for a motion.
Okay, we do not have a second. Do I have another motion?
Can I just ask that we have some discussion then?
Sure.
I mean, is the general feeling on all these fun ones that we want to just defer them, given additional information? Because I'm ready to vote on all of them.
I think
I'm pretty
that,
much ready.
I think it's like one or all is my opinion, but
no, I disagree, Chris. I think that there are certain things that I think we could, look at in all likelihood. What are the chances that that we're gonna wind up on a yes, given a variety of different circumstances that could change between now and special town meeting? I think this is a very low probability change. I think this is something that is just in the normal course of action we would need to fund and want to fund. And unless anybody has a crystal ball that says that things are going to completely go off rails inside of the current fiscal year, or we believe that things are going to go so far off of the rails in the next fiscal year that we're going to have to take every red cent available dime and put it in the operating budget for next year. We should put in the warrant the things that we think the town meeting should likely approve. And the role of the finance committee is at least, we talked about perception a little bit earlier. People read the warrant and are expecting to see recommendations from the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee. So to the best extent possible that we can make recommendations in good conscience now, I think we should make them. There are some, obviously, as we've discussed, we can't. But it's up to each of us individually to kind of determine what we think for each one.
I think a recommendation to approve just says business as usual. And if we go into special town meeting with the group that we had at Springtown meeting, that will be probably the attitude of the voters at that meeting. If not, then this one is going to be up for a lot of debate.
I mean,
We'll see, but I think basically the question for me at this point, just so that I know what it is that we're discussing, is whether or not somebody wanted to make a motion to put it on the table for a vote, for discussion, and we can discuss it more after that.
I would move to recommend approval.
second.
Okay, is there more discussion on that?
Yeah, my view on this, it's almost like our 401ks. We should be investing heavily on this, and we shouldn't be seeking, large growth on it if we're ever going to meet a $30 to $50 million liability in the future. And through compounding interest, it's the way to do it. So I think we got to put money in this thing.
Okay. Then roll call. Peter,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Dave,
No,
Jay,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Heather,
Aye.
and I for myself. So on this one, we're going to recommend approval. Finance Committee recommends approval 6-1. And then we move on to, we can't do anything with the fire union. And we can't do anything with the clerical union. So we would be at the public, PEG. Is it Public Education and Government? Is that what PEG stands for?
Yes.
All right, basically voting on transferring
120,000 from their retained earnings.
to the enterprise fund. Is that okay? Yeah, unfortunately, I'm losing, I lose half my picture just trying to.
Do you want me to move it, Terry? Is it too low?
No. It's not, it's in the fine place. The problem is that when I go to take a vote, then I have, like all the list up, and then it kind of takes out the right half of the screen. So, all right, do I have anyone wanting to take any action on Article 9?
I move we recommend approval of Article 9.
Second.
Second.
Okay, so I have Dave recommending approval. I heard Chris come in on the second.
Yeah.
So all in favor of Article 9 with $120,000 for moving the retained earnings? Peter,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Jay,
Aye.
John, John,
Aye.
Dave,
Yep. Okay.
Aye a second time.
Well, unfortunately,
Or was
it's
that
like
Jay?
No, we got you. No, Terry, it's you and I.
Heather,
Harry and Heather.
that was an aye from Heather and an aye from me. Okay, so the participant list, when people talk or make noise, it moves people around. So that's not working either. So hopefully
Terry,
this will be the,
Use a different view.
Terry, would it be helpful if I called the roll?
yes, please, thank you.
Okay.
That would work great. I'm sorry.
Stepping into my vice chairmanship.
You go
Jeez.
there, Peter.
All right. So we're at the Sewer Reserve Capacity Stabilization Fund. Do
Which
we
one
have
is
anyone
this?
ready to take action?
This is
Number 10.
This is Article number 10, yes.
Yes.
Moving $68,000 into the Reserve Capacity Stabilization Fund.
I move to recommend approval.
Second.
Okay, so Peter made the motion, Dave seconded. All in favor?
Chris Menard,
Aye.
John Henshaw,
Aye.
Heather Soroka,
Aye.
Dave Passios,
Aye.
Jay Simeone,
Aye.
and I for myself, and Terry Birchfield.
Aye. Appropriation of bond premiums to adjust the prior portion of the bond or to place in use for future capital. Is anyone prepared to make a motion on this, given the presentation, given the numbers that were in the presentation?
Is there a financial impact on this?
What's,
It's basically well, we would probably just recommend approval because we're going to say that, yes, we're going to take the funds from the premium borrowing to apply it against either the borrowing or the purchase of capital items later on. So
Just moving money to another savings account.
Yeah.
it's basically just recommending approval so nobody at town meeting says, is there something surreptitious going on?
Question, where it says and or to reserve all or a portion, couldn't someone on town meeting floor change the numbers as proposed?
Would have to
They
revote.
could, but then we
Yeah,
would change our
anybody can change.
recommendation.
Okay.
I move to recommend approval.
Second.
I will-
Got it.
Okay. All in favor?
Chris Menard,
Aye.
John Henshaw,
Aye.
Heather Soroka,
Aye.
Dave Passios,
Aye.
Jay Simeone,
aye.
and I for myself, and Terry Birchfield.
Aye. Okay, the amend the Code of Lunenburg salary administration bylaw to add the two job titles presented by the Personnel Committee.
I move to recommend approval.
Does this have a direct financial effect? Because it's already in the budget.
I've had none.
She said no.
Yeah, I believe the town,
Did, yeah. Hold on. Article 12.
I think this does have a direct effect because I think that this is the other aspect of OPEB, which is now we're creating positions within town government that we could have outsourced or kept outsourced. Therefore, creating a liability in the future on,
The assessor one.
I misunderstood the question. I think there's a direct financial effect. I don't think there's a material effect on the current year's budget.
Long term, there is,
Yes.
right? That's
Yeah.
what Chris is saying. Yeah.
well, so I would say that although I agree with what you're saying, we could probably start reducing the amount we put into OPEB if we didn't have an astronomically high liability in the future.
What?
Yeah,
What I'm saying is that we're creating this monster and just feeding it by always hiring in-house. I think we should be looking to outsource.
But she's
You're
already
never going
got.
to eliminate it.
But yeah,
But,
You're never going to eliminate it.
but you don't have to always go to in-house.
They've already hired the in-house person. They've already
Yes.
hired the assessor.
right. Yeah.
And the other position is part-time, with seasonal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is actually cheaper than the outsource alternative from a DPW perspective. Because the alternative is hiring somebody with a truck versus hiring somebody.
Well, I think
Well,
that,
it's not, that's
Chris's
not the
point,
same thing.
right. It's also, I mean, understanding Chris's point and understanding that basically, yeah, there's always something to be said for what we're contracting out and what we're taking in positions for and why we're doing that. I think that as I look at this, when I'm considering the salary administration plan, I'm not sure that I'm necessarily agreeing to have a position. I think what I'm agreeing to is paying a position at a particular grade or supporting the salary administration plan as put together by the personnel committee.
Right.
The discussion
Right.
around whether or not you're going to outsource something versus hire someone to do it is not dependent on what's in the salary administration plan. So to the extent that I would regard this as having an effect on the budget is when you have, if you do have those positions, they're plugged into the budget at a particular amount of money. But yes, I understand the long range effects. But the other thing about the $30 to $50 million liability is that it's not like a static, 1 year you're going to pay $50 million. It's basically a rolling over a period of 20 years. You could potentially pay $30 to $50 million down the road, which is one of the reasons why when the actuary makes the presentation, it's a big hairy monster, but it's not as bad as it might appear, because it's not an all at once you're going to have that much money in the bank. So it's kind of like a weird thing. So I think in the past, when we've made a recommendation around the salary administration plan, it has more to do with supporting the placement of a position at a grade. So, and because basically there's not a requirement that because there is a position that it be filled. That's just my 20 cents on that.
So is our recommendation become no financial impact? Is that?
You're more than welcome to make that kind of a motion.
There is a motion on the floor.
You have one on the floor, Terry. I just interrupted it.
Well, we have
Do we have
motion. I didn't hear who seconded it. I heard that Peter.
I thought Jay did.
Jay, did you second that?
Probably.
Okay.
I think either way we support it. I question whether it's got a direct financial effect
Yeah.
in the present budget. That's all.
Yeah, if it's already in the present budget.
Yeah, usually the one issue I usually take with the personnel committee in terms of, or the salary administration plan altogether is that I think it starts below minimum wage. And I don't know if they've made changes to that yet. So,
I think some of that was part of last year's adjustment, but I'm not
Yeah, I thought it
sure how they
was.
rectified it.
That was for the beach personnel.
Oh, just them? Okay.
Oh, that's right. Yep. Parks did
I
that.
think what they ended up doing was just actually moving the grade of the people working at the beach
Right.
because the first steps were too low.
But the bottom
So-
steps are still too low. Right.
That's an ongoing
So-
discussion with the personnel committee.
I'm sorry?
What was that?
Ongoing discussion regarding that, those grades that are below minimum wage.
At the personnel committee. Super. Okay, so with that, we have a motion and we have a second, and so we're now voting to recommend approval.
What was
Menard.
wait, what was the motion? Was it?
Yeah.
The motion is to
approval?
recommend approval to Article 12.
Aye.
Chris Menard, aye. John Henshaw,
Aye.
Heather Soroka,
Aye.
Dave Passios,
Aye.
Jay Simeoni,
Aye.
and I for myself, and Terry Birchfield.
Aye.
Good.
Okay, 250 Howard Street. I don't think that there's anything we can do on Articles 13 and 14 tonight. Greenhouse, the.
Well, do we
Bright
have to
Farm-
recommend deferring?
Defer.
No, because on 7 and 8, we passed them too. She just
Yeah,
passed.
pass over.
Yeah, I'm not consistent. You have to call me on it.
So on 7 and 8, you passed it over. Do we have to wait? Do we have to vote to defer those two?
Well, can I make
Well,
a
let's get to
motion
the
to
end of
defer
all-
7, 8, 13, and 14?
Second.
Okay, good. Chris.
Okay. All in favor of, we could have waited till the end and because, and then actually, can you amend that so that we're deferring 20 as well? So,
Chris, are we amending that?
Chris, do you want to amend to include Article 20?
I amend to include Article 20.
I'll second the amendment.
Okay, so we're making a motion to defer to town meeting, any action on Articles 7, 8, 13, 14, and 20.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Chris Menard,
Aye.
John Henshaw,
Aye.
Heather Soroka,
Aye.
Dave Passios,
Aye.
Jay Simeoni,
Aye.
and I for myself, and Terry Birchfield.
Aye. Which brings us up to the tip.
Oh, yay.
Does anyone have, want to take any action on this tonight?
I
No,
move to defer.
We could have,
Second.
discuss it at town meeting.
Okay, so all right, so we have, Peter making a motion to defer. I heard Jay second.
no, Dave did.
Oh, Dave seconded.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yep.
Okay.
All in favor?
Chris Menard,
Aye.
John Henshaw,
Aye.
Heather Soroka,
Aye.
Dave Passios,
Aye.
Jay Simeoni,
Aye.
and I for myself, and Terry Birchfield.
Aye. Article 16, do we want to hear an interim report from the TCP Building Design Committee?
Yes, we do.
I'm not,
Yeah.
I guess
Well-
we can go ahead and recommend approval. I'm not sure that there's a financial impact at this time, but it's probably a good idea to hear it so that we'll have some sense of what the financial impact is starting to look like.
Yeah, I think there's a long tail financial impact.
Huge.
And there may even be some numbers attached to that presentation, but I'm
Yeah.
not sure yet.
I make a motion to recommend approval on Article 16.
Second,
All in favor?
Chris Menard,
Aye.
John Henshaw,
Aye.
Heather Soroka,
Aye.
Dave Passios,
Aye.
Jay Simeoni,
Aye.
and I for myself, and Terry Birchfield.
Aye. Okay, Articles 17 and 18 have to do with the transfer, care, custody, and control of two pieces of property from the Select Board to the Conservation Commission. Do we want to take any action at this time?
I would make a motion that there is no financial impact.
Yeah. No financial impact.
Okay, so we have, Jay, when you said no financial impact, does that mean, should I take that as a second?
Yep.
There was no motion, was there?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
I moved.
Peter made the motion.
Oh, well, second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Chris Menard,
Aye.
John Henshaw,
Aye.
Heather Soroka,
Aye.
Dave Passios,
I'm,
Jay Simeone,
Aye.
and I for myself and Terry Birchfield.
Aye. Okay, Article 19, conversion of streetlights to LED by Unitil or purchase of streetlights. I think my sense is that at this point, we might want to defer just in case there is a change in the numbers, or do you want to take action tonight? Because basically, we would have to take action on either option 1 or option 2.
Yeah.
So,
Jay, are you
Jay,
making?
is that a motion, Jay?
Yes, motion to defer.
second.
Dave seconded.
I
All
will
in
second
favor?
Chris Menard,
Aye.
John Henshaw,
Aye.
Heather Soroka,
Aye.
Dave Passios,
I'm,
Jay Simeone,
Aye.
and I for myself and Terry Birchfield.
Aye. Okay, so that wraps up the special town meeting articles this evening. We do have a meeting on the books next week if you would like to meet next week. Is there anybody itching for a night off? No. Okay, so we will meet on October 22nd. I will. Actually, Dave, could you do me a favor and reach out to Dave Blatt and ask him if he wants to come on the 22nd?
okay, I will warn you that TC Passios Design Committee has a meeting before that, and both he and I are on that committee. And if we have a light agenda, I'm probably going to stay with TCP if it runs late.
Oh, so, yeah, okay.
I was kind of hoping we would not meet on the 22nd, but it's up to you guys.
I think it probably, I mean, I'll schedule a meeting, and if nobody shows up, then we'll, cancel it, but we have the room,
We'll have one more meeting before special town meeting anyway, correct?
We
Yes.
would, yes.
As I say, my preference is that we skip, but
Yeah, I'm okay with skipping next week.
Well,
Oh,
the
good.
other thing we could
On the minute.
we could skip the 22nd and get together on the 29th if people wanted to do that, just to get a week off.
Yeah.
And
Well, why don't we
But
play it by ear and if there's something that we want to meet on the 29th, we can post.
all right,
And then
so
we-
I'm not.
oops, sorry.
So we're not meeting next week.
No meeting?
I
Correct.
don't know. I guess I could do a roll call vote. Who wants to come to a meeting next Thursday night? It's like,
I move we do not meet. I'm going to make a motion so we have something to vote to. I move
Yeah.
that we do not meet on the 22nd and we move that meeting to the 29th. That is a motion.
I second.
Second.
okay, so yeah, I heard John second first, and then.
Could I amend that slightly?
That was Jay.
If the chair deems necessary on the 29th, because we still have a meeting on the 11th of November.
Oh, yeah.
12.
All right. and
Jay,
what's-
would you accept that?
Yes.
I would accept.
Amended second.
And I will, basically, decide that, yeah. Oh, when are we doing Halloween?
31st.
Okay.
We're gonna vote?
All those in favor? I guess you gave me the host back, didn't you? No, you didn't.
Oh,
Oh, no, in fact, you know what? I just realized there's somebody in the waiting room.
We know that number.
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers.
Good evening.
So what is the motion on the table?
The motion is to not meet next week, but to make it the chair's option for the 20. Good evening. Hey, Mr. Rogers.
But
Dave, we're just we're just in the middle of a vote to meet or not meet next week, so we'll come right back to you.
Okay, great, thanks.
I would
Thank
like
you.
to see the LED presentation before the
Right,
meeting.
so it's basically, Dave, you guys don't have a meeting on the 29th, so it's possible that Dave Blatt might be available that evening.
So far, we don't have one anyway.
All right, well, grab him, and then basically we'll just supersede him. We'll supersede the Passios meeting and let them
Yeah.
know that they have to be out early.
Gotcha.
Thank you. Okay, so all in favor of a meeting on the 29th? Chris Menard,
Aye.
John Henshaw,
Aye.
Heather Stroka,
Aye.
Dave Passios,
I'm
Jay Simeone,
Aye.
and Peter Beardmore.
Aye.
I for myself, but I take the 29th off too, but that's just me. Okay, so with that, Mr. Rogers, did you want to come in with questions, comments?
A little bit of both, if I could, please. Dave Rogers, 82 Highland Street. I'd like a clarification if I could. I seem to remember, although I'm not sure, that in order to take money out of the stabilization fund, it requires a 2/3 vote. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And just a majority vote on the special purpose stabilization fund?
No, it's a stabilization fund as well, so it's a 2/3 vote to take money out, but a majority vote to put money in.
Okay, thank you. This, with regard to cruises, I have had occasion to go behind the public safety building, and there's more than 5 and less than 10 Crown Victorias lined up there. I wondered if there's any plan for them, and if not, maybe a suggestion if they're worthwhile. Send 3 of them up to Monty Tech and have them send us back one that's serviceable and we could use for something within the town. It's not a big point for any reason. OPEB, we have $367,472 versus a $50 million obligation. If we put $1 million a year for the next 50 years, we still would not retire that obligation. So my point is, any banker with his or her salt that thinks that 367 versus 50 is significant, I don't agree with. So I have always said, you know, if you have to put something in, that's fine. But boy, don't put an awful lot because it's crazy, in my view. The last thing and the most important thing is the TIF. I really would like to see what the tax revenue would be if there were no TIF versus what the tax revenue would be with a TIF. And by doing that, we can then make an informed decision as to what the benefits are. I have always been and continue to be a supporter of economic development, but there's got to be a reason that we do this. And I don't remember, I think it was Mr. Beardmore, but somebody on the committee said, how would you like to be, you know, somebody that's been paying your taxes, and then all of a sudden somebody comes in and gets $1 million rebate? And I think that's a very, very important thing. But if we can show that there is sufficient reason for us to do this, then I think it's an easier argument to sell. And because I keep hearing that there are more buildings to come, so, you know, basic common sense tells me that we'll probably have to be facing this issue again and again. So we really should understand and be able to sell this thing with hard numbers. And that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Actually, I'll probably tag on to that. And I think last week, I can't remember if I made the remark or not, but I think that this would be potentially a very good way to kick off or to try to gin up the Economic Development Committee, which is currently not meeting, to make some recommendation regarding a policy around when this type of action might be taken, whether it's a current business or potential new business. But that's just since that committee hasn't been able to get off the ground, and God knows the economic development discussion or the discussion around economic development has been going on for quite a while, and it would be really nice to see it actually go somewhere. So, like after, and I know Peter's interested in, like working with the Economic Development Committee after he finishes his debt stuff, but
I thought he was
I
going
do
to be
understand. I'm
What did
sorry?
you say, Heather?
Oh,
chair. Yeah.
I still can't hear you, but maybe
I thought you
it's.
wanted to be chair of that committee.
Oh God.
Oh. You're not going to be chair of the Economic Development Committee?
Only if you're vice chair, Heather.
Oh, no.
I think we should
Okay,
move
so-
forward with a policy on the TIF even without an economic development committee.
Yeah,
I don't think it should just be some ad hoc process by which companies come forward with and we assess whether to give TIFs.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that, the way to get there, I mean, obviously, the proposal that is in front of us is, a good catalyst to figuring this out. I think the way to get there in the absence of an economic development committee is probably, a subcommittee of the Finance Committee and Board of Selectmen to kind of hammer it out.
Well, actually, I think planning was the group that actually
Okay.
charged the Economic Development Committee. So, and I think, I'm trying to remember if when they first did the charge, whether they were looking for members of particular committees, but I don't think so. I think that it was probably broad enough that it probably made it harder to recruit.
Wouldn't a
rather
TIF
than-
policy be an economic policy, though, which would come under the Board of Selectmen?
Oh,
I
all
mean,
policies will come under the Board of Selectmen. So even if
Right.
we wrote a policy, we would just be making a recommendation to somebody.
Right. Okay.
So, just in terms of the financial impact of it, and again, it might be a good catalyst for getting that committee going as well. But yes, I think you're right. I think we need to have our own policy in the absence of anything else in order to make a determination about how we would vote on something like that.
Well, maybe this is something that, we can all think about over the course of our next meeting or two prior to special town meeting and, maybe come to agreement on a recommendation that, Terry, you can articulate when the article comes up, because we'll have an audience of people who may or may not be interested in this, that we could, potentially recruit some participation.
Yeah, that's okay. All right. So for this evening, I think we're finished with the special town meeting warrants. So we'll move on to minutes.
Oh, we don't
Which
have.
minutes? We don't have any minutes?
No, I didn't put anything in the file. We approved the ones last time.
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't have to do anything with minutes?
Mm-mm.
So we've already changed the meeting from next week to the 29th.
Can I ask a question on minutes?
Yes, you can.
So there was a request that came out from the senior tax work-off program, if there were needs for people to take things like minutes. Could we sponsor someone to potentially look at, not having to burden Heather with watching these meetings twice? And
That is
Yeah,
a
actually-
brilliant idea, Mr. Mann.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, and
Yeah.
thank you for the email. And I did forward the request on to Heather, so I'll let Heather speak to it.
It's already something I've talked to Julie Beliveau, the assistant town manager, about. She's on that senior work-off committee. So as well as if that person, or if there's anyone available for helping out the TCP Building Design Committee and the Capital Planning Committee, because they don't have a clerk right now.
so the
But
form
we're
that was
first.
sent out indicated like a formal request. So has that formal request gone in?
Yep, I've talked to the assistant town manager. She's on that committee.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's probably the more formal request. Her boss asked her to do it. But yes, but we can't, do we need to follow up with a form? Because we can do that. No? Okay. Then with that, I'm more than happy to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Terry, could we do committee reports, or are we going to skip that tonight?
Did I put committee reports on the agenda?
Honestly, I don't have it printed, so I don't know, and I don't want to
It's
open another
not.
screen. Okay,
But
that's
go
fine. We can,
ahead, 'cause that's okay, because I skipped right over public comment, so you can, if you have one and you want to do it as a public comment, you can do that.
well, I just have a little bit. TC Passios committee had to defer its meeting this evening to next Thursday because of a agenda posting issue. We are hoping that we've got I guess I'll call it semi-finalized footprint of where everybody's going into the building, or we'll have a pretty good look at it at the meeting on the 22nd. There has been some sidebar discussion since the last meeting in regards to a couple of entities within the building, but that's for further discussion by the committee. So I can't really comment on that at this point because the committee has not really kicked it around yet. Let's see, as I mentioned earlier, Capital Planning Committee will be meeting on the 20th, and we will be looking at the current policies that affect the Capital Planning Committee's ability to make decisions and criteria for capital projects. I asked for that to be on the agenda so that we could discuss the mechanism and the desire possibly to change part of that policy, i.e. the dollar amount that triggers eligibility for a capital project. Parks Commission will be meeting on Monday the 19th. We'll be moving into another hour or so, I believe, of discussion about Marshall Park, and we've got a few other things to work on. Those are my committee reports for this evening.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I can, open space met on Tuesday. There was a chapter 61A withdrawal notice at 360 Flat Hill Road, which is part of the, Flat Hill Orchard. It's kind of the annex down closer towards, Page Street. It's like 20 something acres, I think, 23 maybe. And it met 4 of the 6, possibly 5 of the 6 criteria. So although the purchase and sale is for $600,000, they were looking at potentially other ways of exercising right of first refusal, maybe through a trust, coming in and buying it, giving our right of first refusal to a trust to maintain it as farmland. One of the things that stuck out with me was that it is actually prime. It's like the best farmland, whatever that term is, like prime farmland. So as an agricultural town, so claimed, it's something we probably should be seeking ways of saving good agricultural land versus putting in another development.
Chris, not to get too deep into that, could I just ask, I didn't get a chance to look at it. Is there good access to it?
Yeah, there's like 4 points of access from Watt Street as well as Flat Hill.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Hearing nothing, I'm now ready to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved at 9:10 p.m.
Second.
All in favor, Chris?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Heather?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Jay?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
And I for myself. See you all in 2 weeks.
Good night, everybody.
Aye.